Chapter 1 Capture. The setting sun shines on the vast forest sea, and the clouds are dyed with red clouds and rise like waves. The sky is as clean as a flat lake, with only a few wisps of smoke rising. Under the smoke is a simple settlement, scattered with huts made of branches and long grass. Dozens of tribal people wearing only leather skirts gathered in the middle of the fire pit. They made a fire to cook, laughed, and played. The aroma of corn, wild vegetables, and unknown animal meat wafted into the air. The 12-year-old Shulat stood in the depths of the woods. The young man looked at the settlement in the distance in confusion. He has a delicate face, black hair, black eyes, yellow skin, and a clean little face. He wore a conical pointed hat on his head and a dark green waistcoat that covered his whole body. There is a piece of brown crotch cloth tied on the lower belly. The cloth head hangs down just to cover the vital parts, and on the feet are small moccasin shoes. He held a foot-long obsidian dagger in his right hand and a small shield tied to his left hand. It's a small shield, but it's enough to cover his small body. The most eye-catching thing is a string of specially made obsidian necklaces that hang from his neck to his chest. This is an important status symbol. Shulat looked in front of him. A group of fierce and strong warriors were vaguely visible in the shadow of the trees. The warriors wore green leather armor, outlining strong lines. The cuffs and trouser cuffs are dyed red, and they wore the same crotch cloth and pointed leather hat. Most of them were barefoot, with a rope tied around their waists and a half-meter-long leather wooden shield on their left hand with horrific patterns carved on it. The right hand holds an obsidian stick over 1 meter long, with the sharp blades already removed. At this moment, the warriors hunched over and remained silent, like wild beasts in the jungle, with dangerous and excited lights flashing in their eyes. Perhaps feeling Shulat's gaze, the two warriors stood up and walked over silently. The leading warrior was in his 30s or 40s and was extremely strong. His face was painted with red and green stripes, and he wore a fierce tiger helmet. Bright feathers hung from the back of the helmet, resting on a striped yellow leather armor, like a beast walking upright. This is the elite of the Empire, the leader of a 20-man team, a jaguar noble warrior. The jaguar warrior walked up to Hewlett. "Zealot, we are going to attack soon. This is your first time participating in the battle, so there is no need to charge with us. You stand on the outside and tell TURs if you see any savages escaping. If you see a suitable opponent, you can also go up and use your shield and knife. Remember, you don't need to take prisoners. Don't hold back." After saying that, he turned to the young warrior next to him and ordered, "Turs, follow Shulat and don't let him face the wrong opponent. If he can handle it, don't interfere. For the first time, let him get blood. I will bring you 2 prisoners." Finally, the jaguar warrior nodded to Shulat. He grinned, showing his cold teeth, and left quietly again. The young samurai was about 20 years old. He crouched down next to Shulat in frustration. "Zurat, I will always be with you. Later you can find a lonely little savage or an old savage." "Turs, why are we attacking these tribesmen? They didn't hurt us." Shulat's eyes were filled with confusion, and the memory of the past always lingered in his mind. Even if it began to blur, the values hundreds of years later still stubbornly survived in his heart in this cruel jungle era. "Why?" Turs scratched his head. "Because the new Tratoni has just ascended the throne, and we need more sacrifices in the coronation ceremony." "Then why are so many lives wasted in the sacrificial ceremony?" "Because this is the preference of the gods." At this moment, a loud eagle cry was heard, followed by dozens of figures rushing out of the dense forest. The warriors let out terrifying howls and surrounded the settlement from all sides. A jaguar rushed at the front. The stripes on the tiger's skin were colorful and jumping, and the heavy obsidian long stick was like dancing lightning. With a single tap, he knocked a young savage unconscious to the ground. Then, with a backhand, he hit the other person's waist and abdomen. The other person immediately fell to the ground and rolled in pain. Other warriors also continued to achieve results. Even though the number of tribesmen was 4 or 5 times that of the warriors, the battle was one-sided. The short spears raised hastily by the tribal warriors were dexterously avoided by the warriors, leaving shallow marks on the warriors' leather armor. However, the counterattacks from the sticks were so powerful that they felled with one blow. Several tribal hunters also began to resist, using simple hunting bows to shoot homemade short arrows and inserting them into the leather armor of several warriors. This was the last effective resistance, and the hunters were quickly defeated by the attracted samurai. The ensuing battle turned into a one-sided chase and capture. The tribesmen fled in all directions. The warriors either pursued them or took out ropes and tied up the satisfied prisoners. A warrior began to carry the fire from the fire pit towards the hut, and soon the firelight and cries filled the sunset. "Let's go too," telephones urged from behind. Shulat stared blankly at the firelight of the tribe, figures flickering in front of his eyes, and the cries and laughter seemed far away. At this time, a thin figure suddenly rushed from the front, running with violent breathing, rushing towards Shulat. "Be careful." An urgent cry came from behind. The figure in front had obviously noticed Shulat, and the sharp wooden spear in his hand was thrust straight into the small enemy. Shulat's eyes were dazzled, and he subconsciously raised the shield with his left hand, and the wooden spear slid to the side while grazing the thick skin. The movements of 2 years of compulsory training have been engraved in his muscles, like clouds and flowing water. Shulat then took a step forward, and then moved his right hand forward. The dagger pierced deeply into a soft object, and the moist liquid quickly warmed his small palm. The figure in front immediately paused, and the wooden spear hit the shield again feebly, and then again, and the force quickly became smaller. Only then did Shulat see the person in front of him clearly, an unkempt young man. He was extremely thin and apparently chronically malnourished. However, at the age of 15 or 16, a pair of hateful eyes stared at him closely. Soon, the young man's pupils gradually dilated, his body slipped from the dagger, and he fell weakly in front of Shulat. His eyes that had lost their vitality were still looking at Shulat. Shulat seemed to have been hit by something. He staggered back a step, the dagger slipped from his right hand to the ground, and his knees suddenly weakened. At this time, a pair of big hands stretched out from behind and firmly held the young man's shoulders. "Well done." Telephone said with a smile, "I'm very skilled in thrusting with my shield. It seems that the captain and the captain have trained well." "I killed an innocent person." Shulat trembled slightly, his eyes lost focus, and he murmured. Reality tore apart the peaceful past, as if awakening him from an intoxicated dream. This was the first time in his life that he had killed someone. What? Why? Why? Fighting is the greatest honor and the greatest joy. Of course, so is sacrifice. Once we catch some more sacrifices, we can wait for this year's coronation ceremony. We are really looking forward to it. Telephone smiled innocently, his eyes gleaming with joy. Blood, death, is it destined to be this way? Zulit, what are you talking about? Louder, I can't hear you clearly. Tur scratched his head. Forget it, it's normal to be a little dizzy the first time. I was like this the first time before. Of course, you're a little younger. Oh, it seems to be over with the captain. Let's go there quickly. Telephones picked up the dagger and stuffed it into Xylet's waist. Then he half pulled the boy towards the jaguar. Behind him, the body of a young man lay leaning on the grass, staring blankly at the sky. The sunset gradually faded away, and darkness immediately swallowed him up in this wild American mountain forest. Chapter 2 Prisoners. You stupid turkeys can even hurt such a small settlement. In front of Shulat, the jaguar Orash was furious and roared at several warriors who were scratched by spears and short arrows. Take care of the wound quickly, apply yucca juice on me, and apply the leaves of ink tree on it. If you are chosen by Shulatel, the god of death, you will die in the rain forest when you return. After hearing this, The warriors took out the small sisal bags they had prepared and took out these natural medicines to treat each other's wounds. As a classical military society that fought for decades, the Aztec city-states already had an effective method of dealing with injuries. Yucca and ink trees are two effective antibacterial plants. And you, why are you tying up these old men and children? Are you carrying them through the rainforest for more than 10 days? Let me go. Let me let the old men, the children, and the thin women go, so that I can come and catch them at the next big festival. Captain Orosh, there's a hunter here with an injured leg. Huh. Orosh glanced at the tribal hunter on the ground. Shulat finally regained some of his attention and looked at the hunter. The hunter was about 30 years old and had a weathered face. He lowered his eyes slightly, his left leg was twisted in an abnormal posture, and beside his right leg were scattered spears and single bows. His body was curled up, leaning against the fire pit without saying a word. Orosh came closer and kicked the spear away from ground. Then he looked at the other person's slightly curled hands and calluses. His pupils shrank slightly, and he touched the obsidian rod with his right hand. You can't keep this. Marley, you were shot by the hunters just now, and this hunter will be handed over to you. Okay, Captain. A warrior with leaves on his right shoulder came over holding a long stick with a cruel smile on his face. He swung his long stick fiercely at the hunter on the ground. At the moment when the long stick was swung, the hunter kicked off his right leg suddenly and jumped up from the ground like a hound. Immediately, the hunter stretched his right arm, and at some point a bone arrow appeared in his right hand, thrusting straight into Marley's neck. Marley leaned back in horror and swung the long stick in his right hand. Just as the arrow was about to penetrate his neck, an obsidian war club arrived first. First, the stick body slapped the hunter's arm, and the arm immediately twisted and deviated from the target. Then the tip of the stick slammed forward, hitting the hunter's chin, and there was a cracking sound of bone cracking. Shulat then saw the hunter's eyes widen suddenly, showing the familiar look of hatred again. The long stick broke the hunter's cervical spine. The hunter's head tilted, and then his body fell weakly to the dirt ground. Marley came back to his senses and swung his body on the ground angrily, swinging along the stone stick like an old rag doll. Shulat heard a suppressed cry and saw a twitching young body not far away from the children. A little girl of 11 or 12 years old was crying and looking at the hunter on the ground. That's enough. Shulat, who had been having ups and downs of emotions, finally couldn't help but say, "Stop, he's already dead. What's the glory in torturing the corpse of a heroic warrior?" Marley turned around suddenly and glared at Shulat, with a wolf-like bloodthirsty light in his eyes. "Stop, Turkey," Orosh frowned. "Be more alert next time. Go and do something serious and tie the young captives together." Only then did Marley stop, glared at Shulat again hatefully, turned around and left. "Zulit, how is today's hunting?" Orosh strode closer and patted the young man's shoulder affectionately. "Zulit, he killed a quasi-warrior today, and his shield-thrusting action was great." Telephone stepped forward and replied. "Not bad." Orosh finally smiled and nodded. "Telephones, go and count the prisoners. I've prepared the 2 over there for you. Shulat, what are you doing?" Shulat knelt down, looked into Wushin's eyes for a while, and then slowly closed the hunter's eyes. The crying sounds not far away seemed louder. Orosh looked at Shulat's movements and sighed slightly. Okay, he is a respectable warrior. Shulat, don't waste your time on dead enemies. Shulat nodded silently, not sure whether it was because of what Orosh said, or not at all. "Captain, I have counted, and the qualified prisoners have 2 palms of 1 palm, but 1 palm less." Telephones ran back excitedly to report. 5 times 10 minus 5, that's 45. Shulat calculated silently in his mind. This tribe, which only numbered more than 100 people at most, lost 45 young men and women in one breath, plus a few who died in battle. It was almost completely destroyed. How long can the remaining 50 old, weak, sick, and disabled survive in this fierce jungle? Even if he delays for a while, he will regain his strength after more than 10 years, and he'll be targeted by the prisoner team again, continuing this bloody cycle. In this era of cruel fighting, what can I do? Shulat thought silently as he looked at the burning settlement. Okay, there are about 2 or 3 prisoners per person, and we can prepare to return. Orash nodded and shouted loudly, "The battle is over. Now you can go and have some fun on your own. But turkeys, please remember, don't kill any of the sacrifices you can bring back." The warriors agreed with a bang, neatly took off the shields on their left hands, and inserted the long obsidian sticks behind their backs. They chose to explore, then happily picked up a prisoner and walked towards the dark woods. Shulat suddenly noticed that Marley, the cruel warrior, walked directly towards the crying girl. "Marley, what are you going to do?" Looking at such a helpless girl, I thought of the fate she faced. Shulat was really angry. The young man rushed forward, raised his shield powerfully, and held it against Marley. That old hyena almost stabbed me to death with an arrow. Marley also roared, "I want to get it back from his daughter." "Asshole, you coward! A coward for attacking a child," Shulat said angrily. "What did you say?" Marley's eyes suddenly turned red, and he reached for the worst stick behind his back. Cowards are the most despised existence in Mexican society, which worships warriors. Don't draw weapons against your own people. A roar came, and the jaguar rushed over like a ferocious beast. He held Shulat down with his left hand and pulled hard with his right hand. Marley suddenly stepped back and was almost thrown away. "Zulit, what's wrong with you?" Orash separated the two of them and looked at Zualat dissatisfied. "Marley is going to do something to that girl. That girl is the hyenas." "Shut up!" Orash turned around and yelled. The scowl on his face was more obvious than ever. "Marley, no matter what you want to do, you are not allowed to do anything to one of your own. Zulit is a warrior and is about to become a noble priest. War priests are sacred in the army. You must respect his will, let alone such an insignificant thing. Apologize to him." "But Shulat is only 12 years old." "Apologize, Macaulay." "I'm sorry, Shulat, I was wrong." Macaulay lowered his head and couldn't see his expression clearly. He apologized word by word, glanced hard at the girl hiding in the corner, turned around and left. Orash watched Macaulay leave with an angry expression. He then turned around, glanced at Shulat, and smiled slightly. "Yes, Shulat, dare to fight warriors stronger than yourself, which is the path of a warrior. These warriors are all unruly wolves. Only by growing stronger than everyone can you become a jaguar that rules them." Then Orash glanced at the girl huddled in the corner. "This girl is too young and too thin to bring back to the city. Whatever you want to do it here." After hearing this, Shulat nodded and stepped forward. The girl shrank back in fear. The boy just took out the cotton cloth from his pocket and wiped the tears and dust from the girl's face, but he saw an unexpectedly beautiful little face. He was slightly surprised, then took off the dry food bag from his waist and stuffed it into the girl's hand. The tentacles were cold. After thinking about it, he took off his waistcoat and put it on the girl. "Get out of here. Go as far north as possible and don't come back." The beautiful girl forgot to cry. She looked at Shulat in confusion, wondering if she understood. The boy nodded and smiled gently at the girl. "Thank you, teacher." Shulat turned around and looked back, but saw no one. Orash was already gone. The other children didn't know when to hide away. The softness of the previous life emerged in the young man's heart. He took off the obsidian dagger from his waist and placed it on the ground. He glanced at the girl one last time before turning around and leaving silently. "I wish I could hide all my softness here and then truly face the world. Everything can change. I am, and so is the world." The young man sighed slightly. Then he straightened his spine and showed determination. As if he had experienced some kind of baptism, Shulat strode forward. Behind him, The girl's cry came again. This time, the boy didn't look back. Like a newborn tiger cub, he walks towards the forests of Central America, facing the future destined to fight. Chapter 3 Return. The samurais spent a sleepless night in the ruins of the settlement. It's still the second half of Mexico's dry season, which means it's early February according to the Gregorian calendar, so it hasn't rained overnight. Early the next morning, Shulak got up from the campfire and went to fetch water with telephones. The most important luggage in the rainforest is food and clean water. It is impossible for a semi-safari settlement to have much food storage. The warriors simply plundered some bacon and cornmeal, but had no interest in the unknown wild vegetables, dried fruits, and insects. Orosh used strong sisal ropes to string the prisoners into 2 parallel strings and then led Shulat and telephones. Half of the team opened the way in front, and Macaulay and the remaining half of the team held down the formation at the rear. The road in the rainforest is always rugged and difficult, with tall trees blocking the sky and colorful venomous snakes among the branches. Swamps and mud pits are spread underfoot, and among the water plants are poisonous frogs and mosquitoes. This is a green desert, and every still pool contains parasites and poisons. Fortunately, Orosh is both a brave jaguar warrior and an expert in jungle survival. He applied pungent ointment to everyone and soon found a river, and the group meandered south along its relatively empty bank. Walking along the dirt bank of the river, Shulak carefully kept a distance from the dead trees in the river to prevent surprises like American crocodiles, while curiously asking Orosh, "Teacher, where does this river lead?" This river is called Tampon. Going upstream along this river will pass through the city-states of the 2 alliances. It only takes more than half a month for us to return to the holy city of Teotihuacan. 3 days further south is the capital of the Great Alliance. The sun god promised us the homeland of Mexico, the city of Tenochtitlan in the lake. What a majestic and beautiful city it is. There were 1,000 canoes loaded with goods, 1,000 chinampas filled with corn, 1,000 communities filled with Mexica warriors, and 1,000 great temples filled with boulders. There is the greatest city-state in the Alliance and the center of the world. That's where your family and I come from.